Hey you're finally awake. No, don't worry, it's not Skyrim. It is Grounded, of course. I'm back, yes, with another review. What? Jade, you did one. It got 62k views. Oh yay, ooh, look at me. To be honest, I wanted to do another one because I focused on the new player experience. I want people to play Grounded. I think it's one of the top survival games you can get out there. But there are definitely a whole ton of you that have been with me since the very first reveal. I covered the game within an hour of it going live at the Xbox X event back in November 2019. I gave you guys so much news about it coming out, and I've been there for every single update. So have you guys. So what do you think about 1.0? That's what I want to hear in the comment section today. This is for the hardcore fan. Don't watch this if you haven't already had a look at stuff in the game, as it's going to be filled with spoilers. I'm going to expand on what I really like about the game, but also give a little bit about what I'd like to see improved just a bit more. Let's go. Shout out to the Grounded devs for making some of the older areas a little bit better to go through, and certainly not as cheesable. Things like the Black Ant Hill, rip, you can no longer get on top of here and just go strolling through without bringing some grenades. Also making some of the other old areas little secrets to go and find. This is exactly what we needed to really entice us, because let's face it, if you play Grounded all this time, you probably don't want to have to go and get the chips from all 4 of the main dungeons again. But that's what happened. The story reset like they did a few months ago, and we have to go and do that. But along the way, there's so many little secrets, like the berry hedge, the little Easter egg they put in here, and god tier axe, as well as a little trinket. Go get it now, I've got a guide on it. But I really appreciate that stuff, and there's so much of that going around with all the areas. Just little changes here and there, nothing too drastic or mad, just some improvements as well about using the assistant manager key card. There is a little bit of a weirdness where you can't really access the endgame content unless you've done something very specific in the oak tree lab, underneath the oak tree, underwater. That's puzzled me a little bit. It's not really signposted anywhere that that is something you need to think about or you should check or do. And I would say that's probably the only problem I've got with flow in terms of story. When it comes to the story, I'm also going to be saying how great they are for adding the ability for long-time players who didn't want to restart. You get the full story. You're not missing out on cutscenes like I thought you might. You are going to get every single one, because these dreams trigger after every chip that you hand in, the major ones anyway. Like, you got to sleep at least first, but yeah, it's so good the devs thought about this and made it like this so we could all experience it, even if you weren't going to start from brand new fresh. So enough of the boring stuff. What about the new creatures, the new locations? Some of them are amazing. Like Moldok Castle is tough as nails. The brand new mosquitoes are added into the game, as well as some of the other creatures. I'm going to upset some people here because I like doing it. I've got a big gob, I've got big opinions. Shut up talking about reskins, you people. You don't understand game development. If you add 20 billion different models with 20 billion different animations, the game will shudder to a halt. And as I've seen a bit, some people are experiencing some issues on Xbox, the old gen ones. I'm not saying it's just down to insects, but it definitely contributes. I know this from playing games like Ark and Conan. The more kind of technology, the AI you're putting in with creatures and animations, the more lag it can cause or help basically performance tank. It's rule 101 in gaming. Use what you've got, see if you can adjust it and change it and make it into something new. And Grounded are no different. Of course, these are literally just the same mosquitoes, but with new attacks and new ways to hit you. And that's not a problem. Like, I really don't see the issue. I'm tired of seeing people talk about reskins in a negative way. Using what you've got and adjusting and changing it allows you to focus more on other stuff like great locations, combat systems, adding new armor, weapons, story, and more. Some creatures have definitely not got a reskin going on. I've seen some stupid ones saying the moth is just a bee. No, it has got very similar attacks, but it's clearly a different shape. It's clearly got some different animations. Just don't watch it when it's asleep. And I'm absolutely loving the fact they added the moth. It was unexpected. I was kind of expecting a dragonfly, but the moth, yeah, I'll take that. I think it could be my favourite new creature. I was debating about it compared to like the Black Widow, but I just like the way it sounds. It's so cute. And then you feel bad about killing it to get its pieces so you can make your brand new moth robe set. It's a brutal fight, and as I said, it just lines up with all the other new creatures. They're tough. You're going to need your best gear, your best armour, your best weapons to take some of these bad boys on. And nothing really encompasses that than trying to do the Undershed. It's a huge dungeon with Black Widow, with the boss at the end, and huge amount of Black Ops creatures, mosquitoes, termites and all sorts. It's a true test of any grounded pro, whether or not they can get through it. And for newer players, I think they might start crying about trying to get through. I will say it would be nice to have somewhere to build in that undertrench area, or maybe another escape route other than just either two ends, because it feels like there's too many resources in the undershed together. When you think about Black Ox Horn, all the lint that you can get in there now, all the other rocks, our inventory is becoming more and more of a problem. And although I've defended it in the past and said, get good, go and get pets, the pets have got new buffs, they've got new armors that give them more protection, and we've got obviously the new one, the Nat that was added a few months ago, then that is the answer. But even with the pet inventory, it still feels like it is something that needs to be addressed in future. We do. We need some extra line of inventory now, or some way to hold our trinkets in a separate box or something on ourselves, because there's just way too much. With all the brand new trinkets they've added, 20 new ways to adjust and make meta builds and all sorts of crazy stuff. The freedom in how you play is immense, and that's what I think a lot of people are missing. Like, people are crying about there's magic added to the game. Have you even followed development of this game one single bit? It is a D&D game. The devs absolutely love it. It's got a model on the table. It's a part of the big storyline. You're meant to customize and create a character however you want to go through the game. If you want to be a mage, be a mage. If you want to be a ranger class, be a ranger class. It's got so many different ways for you to choose how to play. Yeah, maybe Grounded has always been a bit more sci-fi based, but I don't see the problem with adding some magic staves. It just is such a cool feature. The effects on these staves are amazing, and I just can't wait to get deeper into them and start really using them in my builds. But we do need a salty set. Like, we got spicy, we got fresh, we got stun. So where's the salty one? Give us some sort of salty stick. There's still some kind of problems though with certain unlocks that you guys are telling me, and on careful reflection I kind of agree with some of them. I was saying that maybe we don't need the icebox earlier in the game, because the icebox you get by completing the undershed laboratory basically, and at that point you're probably 3/4 of the way through the game. You've only got maybe one more boss and the final base defense to do. You guys are saying you should have this locked earlier because it gives you the chance to store your meals and not run out and basically spend your life gathering resources, hunting creatures. I would still argue no, because the devs want you not to be too OP. We can already have smoothies last forever. If we have meals last forever, then when are you ever going to do any random exploring or random gathering? You'll just do a couple days, build up huge amount and never go hunting again. That's why I feel it's meant to be for endgame. It's meant to be for the players that are going to nearly do everything in the story, but then will carry on building a huge castle, or go and take care of all the mixers, or maybe just want to mess around doing other stuff. But yeah, I feel like it should be unlocked at least one dungeon earlier, maybe part of the termite den. Or even the actual stump lab. At least give it to us just before we go and encounter more of the bosses. Overall, there are still a little niggles with crafting and progression. Like, we've changed the crafting system again, so we've added the new plates and the new ways to do it. And instead of having the recipes all bundled together, it's kind of convoluted. And I feel that for new players, it's going to be frustrating and just a bit annoying. Like, you get the chip that helps you go and get brittle, so you can make brittle armor plates. But of course, you can only make them still if you've gathered the rocks. You don't actually get the recipes to craft your own brittle plates out of bug parts or whatever else until you do the next dungeon. I'm sure there's good reasons talking about making stuff not too easily accessible, that you get a 2 or 3 armor sets or maybe a few weapons upgraded to the next level before you have to actually go and take on something. They don't want the game to be too easy for people too quickly. But I do think the game doesn't do a great system of explaining that it really says to you, hey, what's going on? Judging by the amount of comments I've had on my videos saying, I don't know how to craft this, or where can I find this? They could either add something in the future, or maybe just bite the bullet and put them together a bit more, so that when you unlock brittle plating, you unlock the recipe to make it out of bug parts. Other than that, that's my only real gripe that I came to realise after another week with the game, was that it was just a little bit frustrating. You couldn't really get a full-blown sort of super gear before taking on like the stump lab, and only when you defeat the final boss Schmector do you get access to be able to craft as many as you want out of bug parts. But I will say, from the devs' point of view, I can see why they've done it. They want you to explore. They don't want you always just being meta build, going straight from one dungeon to the next and completing the game in basically 10 hours. They want that feeling that, you know, you're surviving and thriving in the world, and so you're going to have to gather some of these resources, look for them stones to really make tough decisions maybe about what is going to be best. But yeah, it just still feels a little bit off. The final base defense feature I absolutely love. I think it's perfect challenge, absolutely have it. And the stuff that you can get underneath is God tier in terms of helping out. And that has all been great. I feel that's the perfect end challenge before you finally go home. It's a masterstroke having two endings. And I was a bit grumpy that at first I got the negative ending. I was like, what? You're kidding me. I've got to see these kids lose to Schmetter and poor Wendell just not really having a nice life, like stuck inside the little can. But if you go back, it's clear to see it's part of Obsidian's DNA to have a little bit of darkness there and that little bit of story. And you can work harder to get that better ending by obviously defeating Schmetter. So don't mind it now, but originally I was like, nah, this sucks. This really sucks. When it comes to the scorecards, I absolutely love it. But please, find some sort of reward. I don't know how. Maybe it could unlock the New Game Plus. If you get 100% review score or teen score, then maybe that's it. We get a harder mode than WoW mode. Or we get hardcore mode unlocked. Give the truly dedicated, grounded fans something to really get, or as a reward, a brand new game mode if they get to 100%. I did absolutely love how tough Schmetter was. I found it personally tough anyway, trying to get to grips with him and get through it all with the little dudes attacking you, sometimes poisoning you, and big huge static balls everywhere. It was absolutely frustrating. I spent way too long trying to do it. Give us more of that in the future. When we do, I'm sure of it going to get DLC or some sort of update in the future. Give us tough as nail bosses to really use some of that gear. And I guess that's the other part. Maybe that's the plan. You don't get that stuff until the very final boss because they have got plans for updates and DLC. And they want you to be prepared for it, etc. But then again, you know, when we're going to get DLC and updates, surely that's when we're going to get new armor, new weapons, new creatures and stuff. Another point I would say is the backyard is starting to feel a bit bloated, and I can see why the devs cut certain content. I'm going to address it. There was a huge amount of leaks that were leaked literally only a week or so, 2 weeks before the full game release. I had everyone DMing me. I know exactly everything that's meant to or supposedly be in 1.0. And the fact is, if half that stuff had come in, the game would have been too bloated. It would have had too many games, too many systems going on. We've already got like 12, 15 different unique armor sets, huge amount of weapons. It is starting to feel stuffed in that backyard. New area to explore, like maybe the possibilities of a front garden or inside the house or inside the sheds. Great, perfect new setting where we can start almost afresh, or we've got new areas to explore to use some of that stuff. But I'm kind of glad they did cut some of that stuff. I was obviously hyping up for years now, talking about what potentially would come based on what was in the dev worlds and in the leak files and stuff. I am disappointed Gliders never made it. I thought that would be a cool idea, and definitely some of the accessories though have made that feeling a lot less bitter. But in terms of everything else that was leaked, like there were reports of bearded dragons and maybe ant queens and stuff like that, I feel like what we've got here is good enough for 1.0. The devs are going to be working on stuff. They've said they're going to add some more trinkets and things in maybe some of their next hotfixes. And I did mention this as well, it did feel like some things were slightly rushed. Some places like some of the tunnels don't have any foliage. Obviously we know there's a few bugs around mutations and stability of possibly shared worlds and stuff like that. But that's all normal. Things like that will get resolved, and the grounded devs have always been great at fixing that kind of stuff. I definitely want the endgame mutations to be boosted a bit more. Things like obviously the Mant, I just feel too weak sauce, as well as some of the other ones. They could just do a little bit more. You know, the endgame mutations, they should be absolutely beastly. But with so many armor sets, so many combinations with the accessories, the mutations, the way that you can upgrade all the elementals, the new sour elemental as well adding to that, it's way too much. And I just get it. Anything more, and you'd have people just thinking, oh man, it's another new system I've got to get used to, or it's another new set of upgrades. Like, there is a limit to what you can have, and Grounded's already bursting. It does a better job than most survival games with their expansion of the upgrades and the kind of different ways you can build your class. And yes, I absolutely love the Mantis boss fight. I love it, super tough for people. Although some of you guys in Discord are absolutely smashing for it now with your best builds and stuff like that. There is still a little bit of like grumpiness about the drops of gold cards. I've been hearing reports of someone trying to do it 150 times or something stupid like that and not getting a trinket from the Mantis. But again, all that stuff I'm sure will be resolved or boosted in the coming months. But the Mantis was great. The amount of sheer damage it does, that slow down with the toxic effect around you, just can't move, can't hit hard. It's just chef's kiss. Yeah, it should be the tough. Like, I want tough, I do. I absolutely suck at combat and I suck at defeating creatures most of the time, but that's what the end game content really should be about, making it super challenging to think about all the different combinations you've got and trying to come up with the best one. I feel like there's a ridiculous amount of replayability in Grounded. When you think about the gold card system, peeping every creature, when you think about doing all the mixers, when you get the scorecard involved and trying to get 100%, where you have to find every bit of data in the game to also achieve that. It's a proper RPG game with these kinds of additions that most survival games would never think of. The Stump Laboratory was an absolute genius stroke of adding something different, not just a case of another anthill to go through, but something really hard, a bit vertically challenging, something we've not had before. Absolutely loved it. More like that. And that whole zone does feel dangerous with so many of the top tier creatures, whether it's just the wolf spiders, black ox beetles, red ants absolutely everywhere. Slight issue though still with the progression though, that you need that assistant manager's keycard to kind of progress, and unless you knew about this particular place, I don't think it really tells you to go here. Like, there's not much, maybe like one little line talking to Burgle, you find it somewhere in a note. So I feel like that should be improved just a little bit, but I kind of like the idea that it's a puzzle to be solved and people will be going, oh my god, why can't this door open, and looking up my videos to hopefully find the answer. What they've done is mixed a lot of the systems into one. So you do have to kill a bunch of the bugs now to upgrade your systems. You do have to still gather a bunch of rocks in the early stages, or quite a lot of the game, to get the max gear so you can't just power level through everything. With the huge amount of new trinkets, mixing stuff up and more, I feel like returning players to the game are going to benefit. They're going to feel like there's enough of the content there to really make it worthwhile. But oh, I wish I was a new player right now. I wish I was a new player experiencing all of these dungeons in for the first time and having this huge map with so many different ways to play, different tunnels, just dungeons galore, or places to find difficulty in terms of the creatures you'll come across. That progression going up to the upper yard and finding it harder and tougher as you get up there. But yeah, whatever happens in the future, I don't want it to be more tunnels in the backyard. It's got to be somewhere new. If there's going to be an update or DLC, please allow us to explore somewhere like the shed or like the inside of the house, even though I don't like the inside of a house as an area, because I don't think it would be intense enough. We'd be able to see all the dangers around us. But you never know. The devs, I'm sure, will be creative in it. All in all, Grounded is still one of the best survival games I've played. Nothing's changed in that remark. I just wanted to expand a little bit and I guess talk about some of the others that I feel like little bits improvements can go. I mentioned this in my proper review, the first review, that yeah, there's no stuff bugs. We don't use any of the stuff bug parts to make potions or meals, and that kind of feels like it was rushed through a little bit. So stuff like that, fleshing it out in a cozy update in the next few months, fantastic stuff. That'll keep players happy. In terms of what could happen, they're not going to be doing a roadmap. They're going to be taking their time. You won't see any new content, big substantial content, until at least next year now, guys. Like, that is it. A couple weeks of hot fixes, maybe a little bit more, then maybe possibly some sort of cozy update in a couple months at maybe December time, and then I imagine that's it. The rest of the year, start of the year, we're thinking about possibly a big update or some sort of DLC, and I would pay good money for this. Like, I can't see why. If you're paying $40 for a game that can give you 100 hours of great gameplay, great story, great survival mechanics, co-op action as well, then why wouldn't you pay $20 for another story that expands into the front yard, or expands into the shed, or expands into the house? But that's enough of what I think. What do you guys think? The hardcore player, the player that's been there from day one, how do you feel it's all gone? How do you feel 1.0 has delivered for you? Leave it in the comment section down below, and as ever, as always, I'll see you right back for some more Grounded content soon.